I'm sure you're all asking, how do you know if a deity is contacting you? How do you know if it's a sign, an omen, or just something that just is happening in your everyday life and is not something to pay attention to? How do you know if your deity is reaching out to you? How do you know if they're calling to you? That's what we're going to find out in today's video. Today we are going to be talking about how you can tell if a deity is reaching out to you and how you can find out who they are and literally clarify who they are and confirm. And then if you would like to, be able to start working with them or reach out to them to find out what their message really meant and if it's something that you can apply into your everyday life. Make sure if you're not already subscribed to subscribe to the channel down below and hit the little bell notification so you are notified every single time I go live or I post a new video on this channel. I post every single week on Wednesdays. First off, before I get too deep into this video, I'd like to clarify what I think is actually a sign and what is not a sign. So when you are looking at things and something's happened and you think this is a sign from my deity or this is a sign from some type of spirit, you have to look at the thing and determine, is this something that could happen in the natural world on an everyday basis? For example, if a bumblebee flew in front of you and you noticed it that one time that it flew in front of you, that may have just been the bee being there doing its everyday business. Animals are not for sending signs and symbols only. They have their own autonomy and they are not purely meant to be symbology for us between ourselves and deity. So you have to realize and notice their normal cycles and life occurrences and allow them to just be themselves and be them without automatically directing all signs towards that's a deity sign right there. But if you did see a bee, say, in your dreams, and you noticed the bee acting strangely in front of you out of its normal animal instinct-like behavior, and then you started seeing it in visions, and you saw it in movies, and you're getting the sense, you're seeing it in books and in anything you're reading, and you're not overtly going out to look for these things, for signs and symbols from, say, example, bees, then I would say that is a sign. If you're not like looking up on TikTok bee signs, or like you're not really like into, say, gardening or anything like that, and there's nothing on your social media that would push a bee video, and then all of a sudden it's just pouring through your feed. For example, for myself, I knew that Artemis was calling out to me because after several things happening in several occurrences and just confirming over and over again, one through a tarot reading, one through a friend saying that they thought that would be the right goddess for me, me running into an animal spirit from that deity, and then also having a dream of them. I also would see bow and arrows everywhere, and I wasn't actively looking for Artemis. It was just showing up everywhere. All the things that were sacred to her or symbols to her started to show up in my everyday life, and I would notice them. And I wasn't overtly looking for anything specific. So that would be a sign or a symbol. I would describe a sign or a symbol as something that's repetitive and is out of nature, and that is something that you can start looking at as a symbol and start noting these things down, and then over time they're going to start to compound and you're going to be able to start to see the synergistics between the different events, and then you'll start to piece things together. Also, since you are on this video, I know you're looking to work with deity. So what counts as deity and what is not deity, and how do you tell the difference between those two things? First off, I think it's super important to go over before we dive too much deeper into the video. If a deity reaches out to you and they say they are this deity and they want to work out with you, but if they want to work with you, but they want to have a relationship with you, if they want to have intercourse with you, if they want you to do awful, horrendous things to yourself or to others. That is not your deity. That is a trickster spirit. It is something negative. So make sure that you realize that is not possible. Deities and humans do not intermix that way, and you need to make sure you're cautious. And that's where the other steps come into play, where you actually know their folklore and the history behind them to be able to differentiate whether it is them or another spirit trying to trick you. Because there are spirits out there that are tricksters and will try to pretend they are a deity for even your entire life. And over time, your life will start to erode and make you sick or give you bad luck. And you need to be able to differentiate those two things before you allow those entities into your life. All right, so the signs that you need to look out for are, in my opinion and my experience, first off, dreams. Now, this is how Artemis came to me, and dreams are extremely powerful. It's always been a huge thing in my practice to note down my dreams and journal them, and also look back on them later on and be able to differentiate what was going on in my life in my dreams and be able to see if there are messages from my deities back then or for the future. Also, it's just like a huge thing if you want to be able to get into the astral and all that other kind of thing. Noting down your dreams and your dream patterns and getting comfortable in the dreamscape is super important. Now, how do we know whether a dream is a sign or not a sign? Because all of these examples can be signs, and they also may just be a normal everyday occurrence. So if it is an actual sign, it's going to be something out of the ordinary. It's going to be either repetitive or very surreal. If any of you have been on the astral plane before and have done spiritual tripping, you will realize and recognize the feeling of something that's a very lucid experience and then something that is very more dreamlike. So when you're on the plane and you know that you're dreaming, that's when you're very lucid and you feel everything 100 times more. Everything's a little bit more vivid. You feel like you're almost like on a field trip, if that makes sense, as opposed to watching a movie on a screen. The next way that a deity could reach out to you is through meditation. Now, meditation is a way where you're actually calming the subconscious and you're allowing messages to flow through. So if you're seeing images or hearing sounds, this kind of plays into the next way that they can reach out to you. But if you're seeing pictures or you just get this specific feeling, then you can see their face or symbols of them over and over again, and you've never really seen that before. And again, if it's out of a normal occurrence for you, then I would jot that down and just think about it in the back of your head. And if something else comes up, then I would maybe look at it being possibly a sign. The next way a deity may reach out to you is through your psychic abilities. Now, I believe personally that everyone has psychic abilities, and it's really more of how attuned you are to them and how practiced you are, and then also what your specific personal abilities are. I believe everyone can develop their abilities on the whole scale, but they're just like with some people are born better with sports or with like singing, for example. People can also be born more adept and more physically able to do certain abilities easier just naturally. So there's clairvoyance. Clairvoyance means clair sight. So you're able to see the spirit and like their physical body, whatever they want to portray to you, and images that they want to send messages to you through pictures. Clairaudience is the ability to hear. So you could hear whispers or bells or talking, sometimes buzzing. I find when higher self or angels are trying to communicate any type of something to me when I was first quite young, I would hear a lot of ringing in this ear, and then it would go to this ear, and then this ear, and it would sometimes flip back and forth. Sometimes there's just be one or the other. So that's normally when they're trying to relay a message to you, but you're not fully attuned to be able to hear it. You'll hear ringing. So that's a clue to help you if you're experiencing quite a lot of that and you've gone to a doctor and you know there's nothing wrong with your hearing, then that's something you could think about working towards opening that up if that's something you want, to be able to hear spirit. Clairsentience is clair feeling, so being able to feel spirit. This is something I experienced once where I was able to feel a spirit sitting on my bed, and that freaked me out quite a bit. So that's a good one too. So they could touch you and you could feel them and get a sense. So in a specific moment, get a sense of maybe comfort or of warning. So that's something that they could use. There's also smelling. So clair smelling is being able to obviously experience scents. Like, for example, like lilacs is a strong scent that I get quite a lot. I would assume would be from my great-grandmother because she had a huge lilac bush on her property in BC, and that's something I always associated her with. As well as the rose talc powder, the body powder that older people used to use all the time. That's something that I correlate with her quite a lot. Claircognizance is tasting, so you could get a specific taste in your mouth, and that could create a message for you depending on your experience with that spirit. And then there's claircognizance. So that one is one that I specifically have as well. And that one is where you're just knowing. You just know within your being that a certain message, either something's going to happen or something has happened, or if you get a feeling of deja vu quite often, this might be one that you might have as well, where you've already gotten an experience of this. For example, myself, I knew I was never going to see one of my neighbors ever again. One day when I was coming home from work before I moved to where I am now, and unfortunately that person passed away and ended up having a heart attack. So that's just something where you just know within your gut that just specifically this is going to happen, and you don't really have any reason as to why you're feeling that. You just know it. Do any of you guys have psychic abilities? Definitely let me know down below if you're aware of any of them. If you have claircognizance, clairvoyance, clairsentience, any of them. Let me know down below which ones that you may have or ones that you would like to work on developing. I would love to know. Let's get the conversation started down there, and let's maybe give each other some tips. And then, of course, synchronicity is really the key arching thing that arches over all of these things. So signs and symbols and events are going to start happening in a weird synergistic way, and it's going to feel almost too unreal to be real, if that makes sense. So you're going to have to pay attention to the synchronicities and seeing how those things line up and take note of them and then review them. And then finally is divination. So divination is something they could communicate to you through tarot, through runes, through any form of divination, whether you are asking for it or not. They could send a message if they would like. So just being aware of that and paying attention to it. So if you're getting a specific card over and over and over again and it's flying out at you, that is an example of a divinatory way of communicating. So I would look up the meaning of that card. I would think about doing a specific tarot pull or divinatory act where you're actually clarifying, is this a spirit message? Who is it coming from? And what is the message? Just because that would be a sign that something is trying to get your attention. If the same card falls out all the time, the same runestone falls out at the same time, the same way every single time you pull it, just pay attention to those types of things. And if it's happening over and over again, I would do something to clarify it. So if something happened and you're feeling like it may be a sign, and you've gone over this video and everything seems to line up and it just seems to be a sign to you and you're really pretty certain, what do you do then? Well, first you make a list. I love lists, as many of you may know. Make up a list of all the signs, omens, symbols, and things that you've been seeing and experiencing. and then look up a bunch of deities that correlate to those things and make a huge list next to that. And then go through those lists and read the mythology of those deities and their original legends and myths, and see if anything pops out to you. You may have a few pop out, you may have only one. It really depends. And then you need to start honing in on that deity and reaching out to them. The next thing to do is to clarify. Now, this is probably the main part of what you guys were probably looking for, is to how to actually find out who it is. So this is the part where you actually get to find out who the deity is. So basically you have to just reach out and clarify. You could reach out by talking to your guides and guardians and angels and spirits that you trust that cannot lie to you. So whatever you may believe, for myself it'd be my guides and guardians, so, and maybe even my ancestors that I very specifically trust, not all of them of course. I would do some type of divination and ask them, whether that is through automatic writing or it is through some type of tarot pull, if it's through some type of channeling and you record it, whatever it is that you're more specifically at ease doing, I would do that. And then write down those messages and then see if something resonates for you. And so you have an idea whether or not it is that deity, then you could reach out to the deity. So what I would do is specifically create some type of sacred space that is protected, and either go into the astral, where you have like an astral realm that is a safe space and is protected and warded. And then you'd invite the specific deity of whomever you think is actually reaching out to you to come into your space and to speak to you and clarify whether it was them or not. This is something that only that deity can do, because you're only inviting the energy of that deity, if that makes sense. You can put a salt circle around yourself if you'd like as well. It really depends. Some Wiccans may do like a physical casting of a circle. I do one energetically in my mind and use my aura to push out a space that is safe. And then I also go into the astral plane and invite energy into that space that is specifically for that purpose. And if it's not the entity, they cannot come in. You can also ask your guides and guardians to give you the feeling of perfect love and perfect peace. This is something that I heard off of my friend Bente's channel, so definitely check her out down below. I'll have her linked. She is the Norse Witch, and I decided that I'd like to try it myself. So ask your guides and guardians to give you the feeling and sensory feeling of perfect love and perfect peace, because that is only something that is of purity can do, that is of good can do. If it is a deity of some sort, whether it is the specific deity you think it is or not, if they are of pure intention, only they could be able to give that feeling, and if not, then you know it's not your deity. Once you've confirmed that you are in fact in communication with your deity, then you can also ask them to give you a sign every time that you do communicate that you know is specifically them, and that will be a confirmation when you're unsure whether to trust the advice or not, to ask your deity for your sign, and then you're able to confirm that it's them. Alright guys, that is my tips and tricks for confirming if you know your deity is communicating with you or not. Make sure to like this video if you liked it, and dislike it if you did not. It really helps me determine whether you guys like these types of videos. And subscribe down below if you've not yet subscribed, and make sure you hit that bell notification so you don't miss out whenever I go live or I post a video. I post every single week on Wednesday. And then make sure to share this video with somebody that you would think would very much appreciate it. I would really appreciate it myself. Share it with any of your witchy or pagan friends and family. Make sure you say hi to me down in the comments below if you're new. Also, if you enjoy the content that I create here, make sure you also check me out on Instagram, where I post all about my pagan and witchcraft journey, and I give a lot of tips and tricks and post about the Sabbats and all of that good stuff. as well as I will notify you guys on there as well. So if YouTube does not tell you that I'm posting and you've already subscribed, you'll also get that notification there, because I'll go live sometimes, and I'll also gonna post on my story whenever I post a new video on this channel. With that, I love you guys so very much. I'll see you later, and stay wicked.